Yeah. Good morning, Kaushik sir.
Morning. Good morning.
Okay. Okay,
Good
sir.
morning.
Okay, sir. Good morning. So let's have to start. So very good morning to one and all. I am Dr. Sasank Sekhar Rao. So you are most welcome for the session 4, the today's FDP, that is the latest technological developments for system on chip applications. So before going to the session 4, I want to introduce today's research speaker, Dr. Kaushik Guha. So, Dr. Kaushik Guha is currently working as Assistant Professor, Grade 1, Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, and Associate Dean of Students Welfare and Nodal Officer of Scholarship at National Institute of Technology, Silchar, Assam, India. He is Fellow of IET, Senior Member of IEEE, Corporate Member of IEI, and Fellow of INSE. He is great leader and team worker, leading successfully his department from long 11 years. He has published more than 100 papers in journals like IEEE, Springer, Elsevier, etc., and conferences of international reputation. He has authored around 10 book chapters and one book on noise in RF MEMS switch modeling and simulation. Recently, he has been nominated Fellow of Institute of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers, IET, and Institute of Scholars, INSC, Government of India. He has been an active and regular reviewer of ACI and ACIE journals and various IEEE hosted and sponsored conferences. He has received number of awards like he has received number of awards like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel National Reform Award 2018, Outstanding Faculty in Engineering under BIFA 2018, Institute of Scholar Research Excellence Award 2020, Institute of Scholar Young Achievers Award 2020, to name a few. Dr. Guha has been involved in a number of R&D projects from various government organizations like Special Manpower Development Project from IT, Government of India, Horizon 2020 funded international project with Tyndall National Institute of Ireland and has been associated with it since long time. Dr. Guha is awarded 2 international patents on modeling and simulation of heterojunction solar cells with photonic crystal on photoactive material and a silicon on insulated based optical gas sensing device and its fabrication process thereof. He has produced 3 PhDs and currently supervises research interests include mimicking human body functions like using MEMS technology, RF MEMS, BioMEMS, MEMS energy harvesting, design and development of smart sensors for IoT, VLSI circuit design and optimizations. So thank you very much for a brief uh, biography, Dr. Guha, and Sir is going to present on the topic of kidney on chip revolutionize medical technology. So, Mike, over to Dr. Kaushik, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Raut, for
Thank
your
you, sir.
nice introduction. Special thanks to GIET, whole governing body, organizing committee members. Special thanks to Dr. Shashanko Raut for inviting me, and I have also accepted. This is my privilege and pleasure that I have accepted your invitation, and I will try to present something on our research in NIT Silchar, what we are doing in front of this good audience. So thanks for inviting me. So let me switch off the video now and share the screen to save some bandwidth, because in the
Sure, sir.
Google Meet
Sure, sir.
some bandwidth problem is there.
Yes, sir. You can, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible now.
Okay, na the full
It's
screen
fine.
has come.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. Fine.
Okay. Yeah. So Dr. Raut already mentioned that. So today I will try to present the topic, the kidney on chip. It will revolutionize the medical technology nowadays, because what I have selected this topic for presentation, because nowadays enormous effort and research and investments have been done on this medical field, healthcare sector. So how the lab on chip, the organ on chip, and specifically the all the organs, our multi-body organs on chip, using the MEMS and microfluidics environment, how it will revolutionize the medical technology, that actually it is very, very relevant and pertinent, specifically in the relevant with our modern day, today's world. The whole world is going under such kind of deadly diseases that we are not coming back to our normal life. So that's why we have to something do with the and the medical field. Both will bridge the gap, and if we integrate both these two, healthcare and medical, with our engineering and technology, then obviously we can expect a very good tomorrow for in next coming days. So that's why I have selected this topic. So this is my contents. So just because this is the virtual the seminar, so I think, so in the virtual seminar, in the virtual conference or workshop, because we are not able to physically meet and contact with the other dignitaries and participants, so then I thought that, okay, so let me introduce some about the NIT Silchar to the audiences, to the participants present over here. Then I will give now some overview of the human kidney physiology, then some of the kidney diseases, then I will talk about the how the MEMS and microfluidics actually are keep making the base actually of this kidney on chip and other organ on chip technology. Then I will also briefly touch upon the present research scenario, specifically in this organ on chip domain, how we actually what we are doing in NIT Silchar. So starting from this, that, so just we can see that in the left hand side of my figure that there is an entire globe. In the globe, that there are 7 continents and 195 countries are there, and in the right hand side the 7.8 billion world population nowadays. So now if I pinpoint one location here in the entire globe, and certainly it is our country, that India, our great India, and obviously in the right hand side I can also point one single person among the 7.8 billion world population. So somehow it seems that, okay, in India is a very, very small one country among the entire globe, and also just selecting a one people among the 7.8 billion world population is a very, very miniaturized version. So obviously not, because now if you can elaborate our country, then India, then we have so many states, districts, and other, we have a good culture diversity. And also in the right hand side, just we have taken one human being among the 7.8 billion world populations. Now just I am trying to make some analogy between our India to human being, and also now I can also pinpoint one that state that is located in the northeastern part of our country, that is Assam. Then we can see how the Assam actually is related, or how can we make one analogy between the Assam and the human organs. So suppose in the Assam also, that we can see there are so many districts, okay, and Assam is a very beautiful state surrounded by whole greenery, tea garden, beautiful landscape. In the human organs also, we can see we have so many important organs like lungs, kidneys, then intestines, then our the blood vessels, then our so many all the important organs that actually we have in our human body. That's why we are called that human is the most intelligent species, because of this function of the organs. So similarly, inside the Assam, Kachar is a one district, small place. It is located in the southern part of the Assam. So similarly also I can also try to point out the one organ that is in our human body among all other organs, that is nothing but a kidney. Both are highly important in their respective places. Kachar is a very high rich culture inside the Assam, and also the human kidney is one of the most important organ in our human body. So now if I elaborate this, the Kachar map and the human kidney, it is a bean-shaped red colored one material we can see. This is the kidney. Then we can see the Kachar. Inside the Kachar, our NIT Silchar, it is situated. So NIT Silchar is situated inside the Kachar, and also, if you see the right side of the figure, then we can see actually the kidneys basically consist of nephrons. Nephron is the main governing unit of kidney functions. So that's why also we can try to make an analogy between the NIT Silchar versus our nephron, though it is a very, very small in nature compared to the whole globe. But I mean to say both are very, very highly valued, highly important. So nephron, does basically the nephron does many important works. But if I can mention here, the most two important work that done by kidney, that is blood filtration. It is called ultrafilter, and second one is the water and solute transport. So similarly, our NIT Silchar also, you can see these are very, very nowadays very relevant, and it has a good importance in across the globe. The NIRF ranking 2020, we are 46, and Atoll Innovation ranking 2020 also we have been ranked among 11 to 25. Both are of high value. So now this is our NIT Silchar, the brief campus. So it is a city of lush green hillocks, natural lakes, and picturesque tea gardens are there. So everybody is invited to come to my campus when we will that able to call the all the participants physically to our campus. That will be our privilege, and everybody, we are waiting for the day then when we will meet physically. So if you see the border, then our institute is situated in southern part and nearby bordering Bangladesh, Mizoram, Manipur, Meghalaya, and Nagaland. And one river that flows across this region, it is called Barak Valley. So we have a good campus. It is 650 acre. Okay, it is one of the biggest campus in NIT, or earlier it was called REC, Regional Engineering Colleges in India. So the REC Silchar founded in 1967. Then in 2002, it acquired the deemed university status, and in 2007, the government declared all the national institutes of technology as institutes of national importance. Coming to the rankings, that I have already told you that we have been ranked in the band of 801 to 1000 in World University Ranking 2020 last year, Times Higher Education at an international level. And we are 19th in our country and first in the Northeast region. Then in NIRF 2020, we are ranked 46th best engineering college in our country. Then we are the second best engineering college in northeastern region of India after IIT Guwahati. And in ARIA ranking, Atoll ranking of institutions on innovation achievements 2020, we have ranked in the band of 11 to 25. And this is the all other ranks are also there. We can see here that the NIT Silchar participated generally in each kind of ranking due to our large, very good green landscape. Also, we have been ranked in UI Green Metric recently. Then the US News ranking also we have participated, and we have given the rank. Then all other rankings. So I'm not going into the details of all other rankings. So this is the just snapshot of our the present ranking scenario of the NIT Silchar. Now, what actually we are having here inside our campus, we have almost now the 4,000 to 5,000 UG students, but unfortunately, no UG students are not present in the campus due to the pandemic. Almost 1,000 graduate students. It is MTech, MSc, MBA, and PhD. Then we have a good number of faculty members, and in terms of campus facilities, we have Central Computer Center, Wi-Fi and LAN for 24/7. We have Innovation Lab and Startup Center, well-equipped classrooms, labs, hostels, sports center, state-of-art library, high-performance computing center, and obviously, it's a very good research facility. So this is the NIT Silchar at a glance. Now, just I will coming to the topic. So before starting the topic, just I mean to I would like to start with the slides, because this is the very slide of very important, that the global healthcare transformation, how the cost of care is related to the different band. Okay, now we can see in the orange band, that is health to death, and we can see in the first part of the band, the fitness and wellness, the the cost is very less. It is $0.3 per day. Now, if you slowly move on to the right side, then we can go to the chronic diseases where diabetes, hypertension, metabolic syndrome that will coming. The cost of care increases slowly. So now it is $3 per day. Now, if you again move forward, then we can enter into the complex chronic disease, that COPD, cancer, renal failure, heart failure, that this type of deadly disease will come, and the cost of care also very, very high. It is $300 per day. And again, if you move on to the right side, then you can see it is $3,000 per day. So how the cost of care is increasing from the hell to there. So here it is clear that the cost of care is exponentially increasing from people managing their health to complex chronic disease and acute care. So if acute diseases are not manageable, then chronic disease need to be controlled. So that's why actually we should be very active, we should be very cautious, we should monitor our health and body every times. If we have seen some of the early signals or biomarkers, then obviously we should consult our doctors and we should take the proper precaution so that we can remain ourselves in the obviously in the first band of this, that is the fitness and wellness, and we can invest so many things, money, research in this band, so that we can just can give a healthy life to the common people, where cost of care is also very, very less compared to the chronic disease or acute care. So this is because this slide is very, very relevant in terms of today's world. So now I will come to the main contents of the slides. So suppose just before starting the main topic, that is how the kidney is important, okay, and what is the kidneys, what is the disease of kidneys, like that. Just I will take all the participants or audience or the viewers, okay, maybe the participants, to take you some kind of imagination. Suppose imagine that you live in a house on the beach. Day to day, your view or our view of the ocean never seems to change, because we are staying in the house that is near to the beach. We every day in the morning to night that we every day sees the beach and the sea, the water is flowing. But after 10 or 15 years, if you look outside one morning and see the water lapping at your porch. So for many, that's what it is like to have the kidney disease. So what I mean to say, that it is slowly progress over years, maybe even decades, but people often do not know it until something goes wrong, until the water is at their door. So kidney disease are like that. Okay, sometimes we do not understand what is the malfunctioning of kidney. What is that? Okay, how our biomarkers are changing, because we did not actually get the correct indication or proper indication of the kidney. But when the things goes beyond our limit, then actually we understand, and then immediately go to the doctor, consult with the doctor, and then the other medication actually comes. So this is an inability to track the early stages of chronic kidney disease level. Researchers like many at a loss to understand what early biological markers might look like. There is also much to learn about how kidney problems affect the body's ability to eliminate the medications. So it is called a kidney on chip. So what is the kidney on chip? So kidney on chip is a small credit card type of device. Inside its small frame are thousands of live kidney cells that can model the functions of human kidney. So it can mimic the function of our human kidney. So for pharmacy researchers, this device has opened up countless possibilities, as kidneys plays a major role in the body's ability to process the medications. So this is the importance of the kidney on chip. So obviously, if you would like to work something on kidney on chip, then obviously first we have to know what is the human body physiology. So what is that in human body? That we can know the physical substance of the human organism. It is composed of some living cells and extracellular materials and organized into tissues, organs, and systems. So it is a very complex system, very not very easy to understand the dynamics, okay, the statics of the blood flow mechanism, the cell cultures. There are a lot of issues. So chemically, the human body consists of mainly of water, because water is one of the great solvent. Okay, because of this water, actually all the nutrients like lipids, proteins, ions, carbohydrates actually flow and can reach to the cells. Water is found in the extracellular fluids of the body, that is called the blood plasma. So it serves as a solvent without which the chemistry of life could not take place. So the human body is about 60% water by weight. So our whole body weight actually is governed by 60% by the water. Now what is the kidney? Kidney is the one of the highly differentiated organs in the body. So nearly 30 different cell types form a multitude of filtering capillaries. So we can see the picture of the kidney. It is a two bean-shaped material, the reddish type of color. So there are so many important functions that kidney does actually. Kidney can perform endocrine functions, the regulation of blood pressure, very, very important. Then solute and water transport, acid-base balance, and removal of drug metabolites. So basically kidney does the very good type of ultrafiltration. So it will take some blood, it will filter, and then the waste blood or waste plasma that will be excreted. So the waste product will be excreted in the form of urine. So if this function actually goes wrong, then there will be something wrong in the kidney. And if these functions are very good and it is actually doing inside our body, then okay, then we can say okay, our kidney is working. So there are many parts in the kidney. We can see the cortex. It is the outer region of the kidney. It contains about 1 million blood filtering nephrons. Medulla is the inner region of the kidney. Medullary pyramids, it is formed by the collecting ducts, inner parts of the kidney. Ureter, that will collect the filtrate and urine from renal pelvis and takes it to the bladder for urination. So the waste part after filtering, so the waste part will be excreted in forms of urine. The renal artery, it is the branches of the aorta bringing waste filled blood into the kidney, because kidney, the main job is the ultrafiltration. So through renal artery, it will draw, okay, it will take the waste filled blood, and the renal vein, it will remove the filtered blood from the kidneys to the inferior vena cava. So this is the medical term. Obviously, the kidney specialist or nephrologist and the doctors are well known, well versed actually to this medical terminology. So, but because if we are going to start something, then obviously we have to study something on our human body. Otherwise, it will be difficult to understand. Inside the kidney, the main building block is the nephron. We can see that each kidney has about 1 million of nephrons, more or less. So the blood is mechanically filtered to remove the fluids, wastes, electrolytes, acids and bases into the tubular system, while leaving blood cells, proteins and chemicals in the bloodstream. So kidney has a very important job in that sense, because it will filter and then it will retain the good product, and then it will remove the waste product. So that demarcation, that distinguishment should be there. So if the good human kidney, healthy kidney can do this in very well, and if the kidney is not doing good, then there is something wrong in the kidney. So you can see the picture of the nephron, how complex the picture. So it is not any particular shape. You can see that some kind of helical structure, or also we can see some kind of tubule is wounded around something. So very, very obviously from the picture, it is very sure that very difficult to mimic the kidney function, or to very difficult to actually make any artificial kidney that will look like that. Obviously, it is a very, very difficult job. So these are the some nephron parts. Inside the nephron, we can see the glomerulus, the main part of the nephron. Actually, it is the part that is responsible for the filtration at the first stage. Then proximal tubule, we can see the proximal tubule, how it is like some kind of wounded shape. Okay, it is not any regular geometry. It is like that in our human body. Then descending limb, ascending limb, the distal convoluted tubule, collecting duct, inner medullary collecting duct. So these are all the details. I'm not going into the details of that body parts. Just I have tried to present actually briefly what are the inside in the nephron. So now what kind of kidney diseases are there? So it is mainly glomerular disease or tubular, interstitial, renovascular, or combination of all this. So if we can name a few of the different diseases like glomerular disease, so in that disease actually the glomerulus actually not working very effectively. That means the main job of the glomerulus is to filter the incoming blood. So yeah, if the glomerulus is not working well, then the filtration not be properly done. So it is called to the glomerular device. And the GFR rate, the glomerular filtration rate, that actually increases or decreases. Then the Fanconi syndrome is also, it is very known to the nephrologist that he knows this type of diseases. Proximal RTA, disorder of the loop of Henle, Bartter syndrome, Gitelman syndrome. These are the various types of different diseases that is related to the kidney malfunction. So the chronic kidney disease, you can see there are mostly actually we can see how the chronic kidney disease can be affected by this. We can see the diabetes, that's the play a major role. So that's why the patient with diabetic, that's why, so it is more prone to chronic kidney disease. So that's why doctors and the healthcare professional are always telling and suggesting us, prescribing us some that okay, you should not be diabetic. So we should be very actually maintain a proper diet so that we can prevent ourselves from the diabetic, because the diabetes can aid to the chronic kidney disease. Similarly, high blood pressure is not good for kidney function. So if the blood pressure goes high, then also it will affect the kidney. Heart problems, obesity, family history, also in kidneys a kind of family or the genetic diseases also that is actually proved. Large amount of tobacco use is also not good for kidney. Then obviously the age is a factor. After 60 plus years that we used to say old, and the old people are also, if the people become old, they actually very easily catch up different type of diseases. So chronic kidney disease, that also called chronic kidney failure, that describes the gradual loss of kidney function. So we could not understand at the infant stage or very early stage that our kidney is not working, but slowly kidney actually the some kind of malfunctioning actually is going on inside the kidney, and then after several years, then it will rise to the high level, and then people can understand that okay, so there is something wrong in our body. So the chronic kidney disease is the gradual loss of the kidney functions. So most kidney diseases attack the nephrons. So this damage may leave kidneys unable to remove the waste, because removal of waste is one of the main function of the kidney. So if nephrons are not working, then obviously the removal of waste and filtration of blood will not be proper. It can include genetic problems, injuries, or medicines. So in sometimes that some kind of drug had also had bad effect or adverse effect on the kidney. So that's why the kidney on chip also can open the door actually for this type of study of this type of drugs, that what can affect the kidney problems. So it is called drug induced nephrotoxicity. So this is also one of the very good research domain in the medical research. The people are working on that. We can have a higher risk of kidney disease if we have diabetes, high blood pressure, or a close family member with kidney disease. So obviously we have to be very, very alert, and we have to be safe. And then chronic kidney disease damages the nephron slowly over several years. So nephron will be slowly, very, very poisonous type of thing it is. Okay, it will damage the nephrons very, very slowly. We can see the picture and the comparison between the normal kidney and the failed kidney. We can see how the chronic renal failure kidneys will appear, okay, and how the normal kidney appears like that. Now, if we come to the global scenario, the Lancet kidney study, we know the Lancet is one of the largest the medical research, actually the publisher, that they used to publish a very important information in our COVID times also. We used to see they have already published that in the global scenario, you can see the chronic kidney disease, how it impacts on the global mortality. We can see the figure. It is a figure related to many years ago in 2013 itself. The 956246, this figure, actually these dates directly related to the chronic kidney disease. 1 in 57 deaths worldwide due to the chronic kidney disease. 7% of all cardiovascular deaths are attributable to the chronic kidney disease. So how the chronic kidney disease actually very, very important to study, very, very important to take care of, how it impacts on the mortality. So this actually slides actually describes that. So 134% increase in the number of deaths from CKD from 1990 to 2013, and now in the 2021, obviously this figure will be more than this. So obviously it is a sure, then we should work, or we should devote some time to study this and do some kind of, initiate some kind of research, or with the help of technology, that for the global world. In our Indian scenario, we can see 17.4% are CKD stage, the chronic kidney diseases. So it is not a very small, it is a big amount of the Indians are also suffering from these kidney diseases. In the Indian scenario, you can see in the year 2001 to 2003, the map in the left side, and the map in the right side, 2010 to 2013, the age standardized death rates. So in the red colored zone, how it is increasing from 2001 to 2010, then we can see. So the red colored zone, basically it is the 46 to 65. Okay, so the age, so the age in this range. So how? So now at this year, 2021 or coming years, I think also this red colored zone are also increases. If we compare our Indian scenario with the other parts of the world, then also we can see our India's actually it is rising very high. It is 117 actually the kidney patients. Okay, it is a 117 million if we can see, and in other, and compared to other countries, the kidney patients in India is very high as compared to the rest of world. And in the northeastern part also, because I stay here, I remain here, so I know in the northeastern part also very, very, their kidney disease are very common. The doctors and the health professionals are very much serious about that. The common people, so the common people are more prone to the kidney diseases. So this is another study that we can see the increasing burden of diabetes and variations among the states. So because Indian are very much diabetic also, so that's why we are much more prone to the chronic kidney disease and end stage kidney diseases. Number of diabetics will rise to 642 million by 2040. This is also one of the study published by Lancet. In 2040, it will rise to 642 million. So 1 in 11 adults have the diabetes. 415 million the worldwide diabetic patients are there. 1 in 3 adult diabetics have the chronic kidney disease. So kidney disease is one of the major complications of the diabetes. So how it is related to the diabetes, now we are very much sure. Now this is some kind of comparison study between the men and women. You can see some bit percentage more in the women, 11.8% among the women, that chronic kidney diseases in the world that is seen in the women in 11.8% and 10.4% among men. So some kind of women are also, as per the study, it is the chronic kidney disease are actually seen in a little bit higher in the women side. So now if we can summarize all these statistics, then we can see the global prevalence of CKD is estimated to be 8 to 6%, and this disease burden is expected to grow. In India, the recent studies have shown that it is ranging from 4% to 17.2% with wide regional differences. 17% of Indians have chronic kidney disease, reported a study by Harvard Medical School in partnership with 13 medical centers in India. So 17% is a huge figure. End-stage renal disease, that is ESRD, it is a end-stage kidney disease. After the chronic kidney disease, when the chronic kidney disease will go actually beyond the limit, then it is called end-stage renal disease. This is a very deadly, actually, the recovery from the end-stage renal disease is also taking a lot of time. That it represents the terminal stage of CKD and is defined by a glomerular filtration rate, that is called GFR, of less than 50 milliliter per minute per 1.73 meters square. So if the kidney, the GFR rate actually slows down or decreases, then actually it is the indication that, okay, your kidney is not working properly. So what are the diagnosis techniques nowadays? So blood tests are there. So obviously doctors used to prescribe some kidney function test, to see the level of waste products such as creatinine and urea in your blood. Urine test is one option. It will analyze a sample of our urine and it may reveal some abnormalities that points to the chronic kidney failure. Imaging tests are also there. Our doctor can use the ultrasound to assess our kidney structures and size. Other imaging tests are also maybe used. Today is the age of medical imaging and technology. All other modern medical and state-of-the-art imaging techniques have been discovered, and people are also getting benefited out of that. Then removing a simple sample of kidney tissue for testing, that is called the biopsy. The kidney biopsy is also there to remove a sample from the kidney tissue. So it is often done with local anesthesia using a long thin needle. So the biopsy sample is sent to a lab for testing to help what is causing, actually, to find out what is causing our kidney problem. So these are some standard practices of the diagnosis techniques that doctors used to prescribe. Now here also in this slide we can see how the SARS-CoV-2 or this coronavirus actually also affect the kidney injury. So we often say that comorbidities. So comorbidities with some kidney malfunction, that is highly risky in terms of getting contracted with the SARS-CoV-2. So it can directly rupture our kidney function, or some indirectly also it can do some adverse effect on our kidney injury. Now coming to some kind of the ray of hope. Ray of hope in the means that, okay, because people are suffering from kidney disease, but there are some also technologies there that also can give some kind of consolation and some kind of comfort to the common people who are suffering the kidney disease. So one kind of technique is the dialysis technique. So what is that? Dialysis actually prevents the waste products in the blood from reaching hazardous level. It can also remove toxins or drugs from the blood in an emergency setting. So the blood circulates outside the body. It goes through a machine with special filters. You can see the picture. It is the earlier days, actually, the dialysis actually was this type of dialysis machine actually was used for the dialysis. So how it will take out of the blood the waste filled blood from your body, it will take out, and then it will filter outside in a box, in a machine, and the purified blood will be inserted into your body. The blood comes out of the patient through a flexible tube. It is known as a catheter. So this tube is inserted into the vein. Then what is the problem? Because earlier everything was going right. Okay, people has invented some technique that is called dialysis to actually give some hope to these kidney disease patients. Now, but the question is, what is the problem? Problem is there because what is the problem to dialysis? This is a 3 times a week, every time 2 to 4 hours of treatment. So very, very painful, okay, and punishable type of thing. It will not supply the required solutes because the dialysis can take the waste blood, filter, and then it can insert the purified blood, but it will not supply the required solutes that is required in your the cells of your organs, because our cells requires some kind of solutes. Solutes means sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, protein components. Everything should be there for our cells to make the cell healthy. If the cells are healthy, then our organs will be healthy. If the organs will be healthy, then our whole body, whole human body will be a healthy body. So the dialysis cannot supply the solutes. Then bulky, it is very bulky type of thing, very complicated manner, pain in the treatment because it is inserted in the vein. Then you have to go and visit the clinic every 2 to 3 days in a week sometimes, and you can spend 2 to 4 hours of a treatment. Water wastage will be there, less availability of dialysis equipment in hospital, because in all the hospitals in all the places of our country, not there is no such kind of facilities nowadays. Also, most importantly, very costly, common people cannot afford. So one the renowned nephrologist, actually he has estimated that it costs around 75 to 100 per hour actually. So it is not affordable to the all kind of people in our society. So now what is the another technology that can overcome? So the kidney transplantation. Obviously, we have already also all of us we have heard that the kidney transplantation technique is there. So successful kidney transplantation offers the best possible quality of life for patients with end-stage renal disease. ESRD, end-stage renal disease, is the last stage of the chronic kidney disease, terminal stage. But despite these, renal transplantation rates in the developing world are considerably lower than in the developed world. But kidney transplantation, though actually we have seen some news, we have listened some obviously some of the that news that okay, in some hospital in our country, in Delhi or Mumbai or Bengaluru, that the kidney transplantation had been done. But though it is very, very rare, it is not as that much okay like in the other part of the world. Okay, so because of the lack of awareness, low education levels, lack of a clear national policy, absence of functional dialysis and transplant units with adequately trained staff, and absence of an organized system of organ retrieval from deceased donors, and lack of opportunities to fund long-term immunosuppression. So these are the causes why the kidney transplantation actually are not able to penetrate in actually in every people's life. Actually, not is so popular actually nowadays also in our country, because there is some kind of difficulties there in the background. Drug testing, that is another way forward to battle with the kidney disease. Some kind of drugs can be discovered, but we have seen in our vaccination now also we come to know that how much time is required to launch one vaccination drive. So that means there are several different phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, different type of trial. Phase 1 means discovery and development, it is at research stage. Phase 2 means preclinical research, in vitro analysis. Phase 3 means clinical research. In phase 3 also there are many phases. Phase 1 involves limited number of study participants. Phase 2, then slowly the participants are increasing. Phase 3 also again increasing. Phase 4 means several thousands of volunteers who have the disease, or so it is the phase type of manner. That's why it takes maybe 2 years, 3 years, actually 5 years, even more actually to actually launch a good drug or vaccination okay against some deadly disease. So it is a very time consuming job. 2D models and problems. Actually, what is the 2D models? There are 2D cell culture that are being actually extensively used in analyzing all types of body functioning, but 2D models are not accurate, though analysis is simple. So why? Because with 2D, our human organs are 3D, our cell are 3D. Okay, so our human organs can support the 3D models. 2D models, though it is very simple, it cannot entirely mimic the whole 3D environment of our cells and organs. So that is the reason that the for this reason the researchers shifted to some animal model experiments. So the drugs that are tested through 2D will not work effectively on the humans. So what is the problem in again in animal models? Because earlier we have nowadays also we have seen that some drugs are discovered, then it first tested to the some animals. So for this reason, the researchers shifted to animal model experiments, but animal models also cannot perfectly replicate the human physiology, because obviously the physiology of a mouse or physiology of a human cannot be the entirely the same. Maybe some matches are there, similarities are there, but we cannot say that 100% matching is there. So the internal construction of animal organs is different from the human organs. So there is no other way that using animal models for live analysis. That's why this method is also not seen very effective also by the researchers and doctors. So this is the harsh reality that I tried to show, that after putting or after experimenting some drugs, that how the animals actually are being suffered. Okay. So this is one interesting picture. You can see that this is a monument to the laboratory mouse Russia. Why it is still there now also? So this monument actually commemorates the sacrifice of the mice in genetic research used to understand biological and physiological mechanisms for developing new drugs and curing of diseases. So that's why this monument is still there in the Russia. So it can also mark like that how the animals have their sacrificed their actually life in this type of research actually. Now, what is the motivation of our study? Why actually we have started some work to actually to why the people have started some thought, okay, to work on this sector? What is the motivation? The main motivation can, because the kidney disease spreads like slow poison, the effects of failure are very harsh and permanent. From the invention of dialysis machine, there is a very less research conducted to make it user friendly, because very less research and investment actually amount has been invested on the to actually to modernize the dialysis machine, because now also we can see the dialysis technique more or less remains same. It is again 3 to 4 hour job. Some patients may have to visit clinics even 2 or 3 days in a week. So for entire day he has to spend time in the clinic, then coming back. So it is a same kind of thing. The funding for research on kidney disease is very less, $29 we can see, where compared to the cancer research and AIDS research, it is very low. Not good amount of money is being invested on kidney disease research. So there is a desperate need to conduct the research on development of artificial kidney. So the present problem originated from the thought of contributing to kidney failure society by developing new techniques to overcome the problems associated with existing techniques. So this is the main motivation actually. So what to do? Obviously, we cannot do with our hands. Okay, obviously we have to do. We are the technologists, we are the engineer person, so we have to do something with the help of technology. And obviously the medical field, if we can bridge the gap between these two, if we can integrate this technology and engineering with the healthcare or medical, then actually we can do some kind of artificial kidney type of thing. So obviously we have to take a help from technology, and one of the main pillar of this kidney on chip technology is the MEMS technology. So what is the MEMS? MEMS is the micro electromechanical systems. So this is the one kind of beauty of the engineering system. It can perform both the electrical and mechanical functions with components in micrometer scale. So in a small level, in a small range, it can perform both electrical and mechanical. So that is the beauty of the MEMS. So if I want to say that what is the range of the micro electromechanical system based devices, it is generally lies in the range of 1 micrometer to 100 micrometers. So 1 micrometer to 100 micrometers is a very small thing even. So using this range 1 micrometer to 1 millimeter, 100 micrometer, so we can develop a novel system, one intelligent system, one multidisciplinary system where not only electronics, some mechanical components, instrumentations, physics, chemistry, biology, everything can be embedded, can be integrated together, and we can make a novel device or novel sensing mechanism. So what is inside the MEMS device? Basically, MEMS has three parts, namely input. Input is the sensors. Then the decision making part, it is the microelectronic ICs. And then output, obviously the actuators. So the MEMS device will consist of these three attributes: input, decision making part, and the output. So what is the sensors? What is the job? The sensors will take the information by measuring some kind of mechanical, thermal, or biological, chemical signals from the environment. So all these signals nowadays can be sensed, and all kind of sensors are already actually discovered or invented. Okay, now we can sense anything from our environment nowadays. So what is the job of microelectronic ICs? Because sensors will gather the information, but ultimately after sensing the signal, we have to process it. So the job of the microelectronic ICs, it will act as the decision making part of the system by processing the information given by the sensor. So the sensor, until and unless the signals are processed, then there will be no use of that. So after doing these two functions, sensing and processing, then we have to do something. We have to work with this. Otherwise, our device will not be of any use. So the last part, but not the least, that will be the actuators, and it will help the system respond by moving, pumping, filtering, or somehow controlling the surrounding environment to achieve this purpose. So this is a three combination. All the sensors, microelectronic ICs, and actuators, all if we integrate together, all these three, then we can expect there is a good MEMS devices. So we can find MEMS in computer printers, a very well-known example. Nowadays, inkjet printer heads, automobiles in airbag sensors, and lot of other sensors in automobile. In modern car nowadays, all the sensors are coming up with the MEMS technology, MEMS and NIMS. Cell phones, our cell phones has also 10 to 15 number of sensors are there. These also using the MEMS technology. Lab on chip microfluidics, very interesting and very emerging, very popular research domain nowadays for lab on chip to discover the new drugs testings. Okay, then optical devices, micro mirrors, and then lots of other things. Everywhere we can find the MEMS technology. Now, what are the reasons that you would want to make the micro size devices? Why actually people are shifting from the macro domain to the micro domain? What is the reason? The reason, if we can list out, then we can see, because the smaller device require less material to the make, because Earth has limited resources, we know. Obviously, if we make the device smaller, then we can take the less material. Okay, so the wastage of material will be small. Save smaller device require less energy to run. This is very important, because we know the power hungry. If the device size is very high, then it draws more power consumption, power handling capability, everything will goes high. So if the device is smaller, then it will be not very much power hungry, so the very less energy required to run this device. Redundancy, it is also another point, because in the redundancy we can easily can get one good example. Suppose in the space sector or navigational sector or in aircraft, suppose nowadays lot of sensors are being used in the space mission, space launch, space craft launching mission. So suppose if one small tiny sensors not working in the space, then it is difficult. We cannot go to the space and repair. So we have to put some redundant amount of sensors inside the spacecraft, so that once when sensors can stop working in the meantime, then other sensors will be working and your communication will be uninterrupted. So that's why redundancy is another important issue. So if the device size is very small, miniature, then only we can think of some putting some more number of sensors of a similar type. If the device size is very high, then putting the number of devices, okay, in a system, it is also the weight will increase and feasibility also will be gone. So that's why these are the some points why people want to move to the micro-sized worlds or micro-sized devices. Less expensive also, because if the smaller device means we know the IC chips, okay, it can be fabricated in batch fabrication process. In the batch fabrication process means the cost per chip or cost per device will decreases. So these are the some of the that effective parameters actually that in micro scale level, that actually we can see that the robustness, sensitivity, integration, implantable, high frequency, that is more, and the less part we can see the cost, size, power, adverse effect on measurement, heat, noise generation, that is in the less in the micro scale level. But these parameters are very important to study for the research purpose also, to make the device more efficient. Now coming to the materials for MEMS, the we if we compare the our MEMS technology with the VLSI technology or IC technology, in IC generally still we are dependent on silicon, germanium, and some 3 to 5 semiconductor. But in MEMS we can see wide variety of materials. In substrate we can use the polymers, ceramic materials, semiconductor metals, composite materials. Okay, in thin film also there are many variety. In semiconductor you can see many variety. Metal types also, so many metal we can use. Then dielectrics also, there is a flexibility in using the dielectrics. So that I mean to say, in the MEMS technology there's a flexibility and variety of materials are much more than in other technology. The fabrication process of MEMS, the main fabrication process for silicon wafers that we know already, that is photolithography, ion implantation, diffusion. These are very common process. CVD, PVD, then epitaxy, etching. Okay, and these same techniques are also shared by the MEMS process also. So MEMS technology also use this type of fabrication process steps. So apart from that, some speciality or some special techniques are there in MEMS. It is called micro machining techniques. So there are three basic micro machining techniques are there. One is the bulk micro machining. We can see here the bulk of the substrate is cut away or etched away to form some diaphragm type of structure, some resonating type of structure. This is called bulk micro machining. In contrary, the surface micro machine, we can say the silicon substrate is not cut away. Rather, we can develop some kind of construction or some kind of architecture or structure on the top of the substrate without affecting the substrate. This is called the surface micro machining. And third one is the LIGA process. LIGA is a German acronym. So those who are working in MEMS domain, they know what is that LIGA. It is a high aspect ratio micro machining process where actually the high aspect ratio, I mean to say mm, the structure which actually the height is very more height, but width is very small, narrow width but more height. This type of structure that can be supported by the LIGA process. Some example of bulk micro machining. So in the bulk micro machining, what we can do, we take the first silicon wafer, then we deposit some silicon dioxide layer. Then after that, we some spin coated some photoresist layer for photolithography. Then mask will be aligned. Okay, and then UV ray will be uh, passed through. And then after that, we'll develop this type of figure. And now then we will remove the unexposed photoresist layer by the developer solution like this, and then we will etch the SiO2 with the hydrofluoric acid solution SiO2. Now this, then after that we will also remove the unexposed part like this, and then we will etch the silicon. This is the substrate, silicon substrate part will etch anisotropically with KOH solution like that. So this is the fabrication steps of a normal bulk micromachining where substrates are etched away. So depending on the structure, basically etching can be two type in MEMS technology. One is isotropic, that is called where etching rate is uniform in all the direction. The lateral and vertical penetration the same, uniform. But in the right hand side, we can see the anisotropic etching where etching rate is non-uniform. The vertical penetration is more compared to the lateral penetration. So that's why it creates some kind of slopes. So this is called the anisotropic etching. So some anisotropic etches, some figures are there. Suppose if you want to make some kind of not a regular geometry like pyramidal shape or some grooves, okay, some kind of spokes like structure, then we can use the anisotropic etching. Or otherwise, if you want to do some regular type of etching, then isotropic etching is okay. So in contrary, what is the surface micromachining? Surface micromachining, we have taken the same silicon substrate, then we will deposit some polyimide layer, it is called the sacrificial layer. Then we'll etch the part of the layer like that. Then again we will deposit some aluminum, it is called the structural layer like this. And then we'll remove the sacrificial layer. That's why the name is sacrificial layer, because it will be deposited with the intention that it will be removed after some time. So it will sacrifice. So that's why it is called the sacrificial layer. So if I remove this one, then it will look like a freestanding architecture. It is called a cantilever. So cantilever is a one kind of very fundamental beam in MEMS technology where one end is totally fixed and another end is completely free to move. So this is the cantilever structures. So if we see in the surface micromachining, and if we making an analogy with the our some kind of Jenga blocks and the some kind of we can see the our in household, our kids used to play in their early days with this type of blocks. So if you can see in the picture that the big green flat plate, it will act like a substrate, and on the substrate the child can put some other blocks, can make some buildings without affecting the green block. So this is nothing but a surface micromachining technology. But in the bulk micromachining, the thing is different. Apart from that, nowadays there are other technologies there, fabrication technology, that feature size is also very minimum nowadays. It can goes to the less than 1 micrometer, or even in the nanometer level also nowadays it is possible to fabricate the stereolithography. Then 3D printing. 3D printing is very popular for biomedical design also. The organ on chips also, the 3D printing technology is being used. Laser ablation technique is used. Direct laser writing technique is used. These are the very advanced type of technology. What is the application of MEMS? We can see the MEMS in everywhere. Normally in the medical domain also MEMS is very important. In catheter tip pressure sensors, sphygmomanometers, disposable blood pressure transducers, sensors for fitness gear. Nowadays we can see the wearable patches are there. So all are coming with the MEMS and NAMES, the technology supported by the MEMS technology. Industry areas that we can see the defense industry, aerospace industry, automotive industry, biotechnology industry, telecommunication industry, analytical chemistry, everywhere that we can see the MEMS are there. Information technology also. In biology, what is that? Blood sensors, lab on chip, or organ on chip, we can see the MEMS technology will be there. Optical MEMS in a DLP projector itself nowadays, projectors for our video conferencing. It is a very important tool. Scanners, these are using the optical MEMS technology. Then inertial measurement, some kind of accelerometers, gyroscopes. Then pressure measurement, we can see some kind of pressure sensors, barometric sensors, radio frequency MEMS, the switching high Q inductors, fractal antennas. Where RF MEMS also, I just mentioned, want to mention, RF MEMS is one of the main backbone in the coming 5G or 6G communication system, because in 5G and 6G is such a communication technology where the backbone structure, where the components of the 5G RF system, the device that will be also supported by the RF MEMS or radio frequency MEMS technology. So the RF MEMS is very, very important in terms of the 5G and 6G communication research. Other technology is also there. That is some, and lots of about that. Now, apart from the sensing, also there is some actuation principles, some actuation techniques will be there, because sensors and actuators both are equally required. So it is a what kind of actuators? Actuators will work based on some actuation principles. So some electrostatic actuations, it is there. It is very simple, low power, fast response. Then piezoresistive is there also. It works on the beautiful phenomena, that is change in resistance with strain, that we have studied also. The thermal sensor is also based on changes in the temperature profile. It can work. And then piezoelectric, it is also one of the interesting phenomena, that change in electric polarization with stress. Suppose for energy harvesting application, piezoelectric materials are very, very useful, because here we do not need to apply any external voltage. So if we can develop some stress on this, then it will automatically generate some electric field, and then we can generate the electric voltage. So medical applications, the catheter sensors, okay, measurement of physical chemical parameters of blood. Consumer applications are there. Environmental applications also, MEMS is very useful. The determination of concentration of substances. Food industry also, contaminants and impurities can be detected with the MEMS sensors. Process industry also, robotics, very, very interesting field. There also MEMS are actually used. The biomems is very, very relevant, because biological, where MEMS and biology both can be integrated. So biosensors for identification and measurement of biological substances, then bio instruments and surgical tools. In nowadays, the doctors are using the surgical tools, that the surgical tools are also having some kind of embedded sensors on that, and these sensors are also coming up with this technology. So why the biomems actually has attracted the attention of the researchers? Because there is a overlap between microbiology and microsystem feature size. Because in MEMS, we have seen the MEMS, the ranges of MEMS devices, 1 micrometer to 100 micrometer, and you can see in the ranges of the different type of cells, bacteria, viruses are also lying in the same range. So that's why there is a well coordination and overlap between these two systems. That's why the bio and MEMS, that's why it is called biology and MEMS, biomems, is very, very attractive to the researchers. And if we integrate these two technology, then actually people can make a wonder. Some example of a biomedical sensor, some glucose concentration of patient we can measure. Then then the MEMS cantilever as a biosensors. Okay, here actually we can see the target molecule can be actually binding by the that our probe molecule, and then the stress will be applied. Due to the stress, the cantilever will bend down, and this cantilever will bend down. That means we can measure the deflection. So if we calibrate this device in terms of deflection, then we can estimate how much the target molecule is binded. So this is a very interesting type of application, that MEMS cantilever as a biosensing mechanism of biosensors. Now after the MEMS, we can come to the another technology, because not only MEMS can solve the purpose to support the organ on chip or lab on chip type of devices. So microfluidics is another sub branch also, we can say, from the MEMS. Okay, that microfluidics, without this microfluidics also, actually we cannot think of any lab on chip or organ on chip devices, because ultimately lab on chip and organ on chip, what our organ is a some bodily fluid is there, so we have to recreate the environment where fluid is there. Fluid will be in the very micro and nano channel, so it is confined, is a very small chamber. So microfluidics has to be there. Some use of, without the using microfluidics, we cannot make it. So what is microfluidics? It is the study of fluids in micro level. That is called the microfluidics. So it refers to the behavior, precise control and manipulation of fluids that are geometrically constrained to a small scale. So very small, some in micro meter range of volume or nano scale also, we can store the little fluid or one drop of the fluid, and then we can experiment. So these are some characteristics of microfluidics, that the fluids are directed, mixed and separated or manipulated to attain multiplexing, automation. The microchannels network design must be precisely elaborated to the achieve the desired features like lab on chip, detection of pathogens. Nowadays the people are trying to detect the pathogens. The everyday our medical field researchers are working. So with the help of the microfluidics technology, it is not possible to detect the pathogens. Okay, without this, the microfluidic devices exploit the physical and chemical properties of the liquids and gases at micro scale. So the physical and chemical properties at a micro scale that largely differs the physical properties and chemical properties in the macro scale. So when the fluid moves in a large area, in a macro domain, okay, or in a big volume, then the physics is something different. When the fluid is constrained at a very small level, micro scale level, so the fluid physical some activities, some physics of the fluid flow mechanism will also be changed, and that we have to take care of that. So what are the capabilities of microfluidics? Microfluidics can, the very small sample is required. That is the one good advantage. Low fluid volume consumption. We do not have a big kind of lab or very vast actually the large area of the labs, because it deals with the small fluid volume consumption. So we can create our microfluidics lab in a small places also. Fast analysis, because less amount of fluid volume, that means analysis will be fast. Reaction and response time is very low. Compactness of a system, safer platform for chemical, radioactive and biological studies. So these are the main actually attributes of the microfluidics. So that's why people prefers to do some research on the microfluidics. Microfluidics are for biological analysis. This is that, because why it is useful for biological? Because whole biological process integrated and simplified for the end users. So it faster analysis due to shorter reactions, portable devices for point of care application, low reagent consumption, global cost reduction, accurate measurement, microfluidics allowing to increase the measurement resolution in a given. So these are all our supporting points of the microfluidics that helps actually to do the biological analysis. Where microfluidics lies in everywhere, you can see the engineering, biotechnology, physics, chemistry, biochemistry, nanotechnology. So in like MEMS, microfluid is also a true multidisciplinary research area where all kind of researcher from every domain can come and contribute. So this is the microfluidics. So that's why there is a good similarity between MEMS and microfluidics. So what are the properties that actually plays pivotal role in micro nanofluidics? Surface forces, viscosity, then hydrostatic pressure, fluid shear stress, electroosmotic pressure, friction factor, inflow velocity, density. So these are the properties that you have to deal with the actually if you want to do something on the microfluidics. So these are the very very useful properties of any microfluidics or any fluid flow mechanics in a micro level. Some examples of the microfluidic based devices: the micro drug delivery system, inkjet printers, glucose sensors, lab on chip, organ on chip, body on chip. So these are the good examples of the microfluidic devices. You can see some figures also: micro ducts, micro nozzles, micro pumps, micro turbines, micro mixtures, micro needles, micro filters. So all are in very very micro meter dimension, very very small dimension, but is a very very useful components. Behavior of liquids in the micro domains, that I just told you, that the behavior of the liquids in the micro domain can significantly differs from the macroscopic fluids. Like surface tension, we have to actually emphasize on these properties when we can do something on the micro domains. The surface tension is coming into play. Then laminar flow, we have to assume generally in the micro channel or in the nano channel, the fluid flow is the laminar flow. It's not a turbulent. But in a large volume, the fluid flow is maybe the turbulent. But in the small area, small places, fluidic movement is a laminar flow. Fast thermal relaxation, diffusion, turbulence. So these are the things, some special things that we should consider in the, or we should assume in the microfluidic research. So this is one good example of micro drug delivery system. You can see that a small device, okay, it will deliver the just localized doses to reduce the side effects of medication. So just instead of putting on big injection syringe, okay, we can use the small device, then it can deliver the dosage to your body. So it is this is one of the good example of the micro drug delivery system. In fighting also COVID-19 also, we have seen how the microfluidics are actually the taking part, because in the RT-PCR, that real-time RT-PCR analysis techniques, that was actually invented or based on the microfluidics, the physics when this is the microfluidics, because the MEMS technology, brings the two major benefits. The one is the reduced size and microfluidic integration. So that's why the reaction time and every response time is very fast, reaction time is very low. So that's why we can expect the very quick results very in short time from the real-time RT-PCR test. Then micro inkjet printers, there is one example of micro inkjet printers. Also it uses the microfluidics technology. Then glucose sensors, we can see it is also one of the very very popular and very interesting applications of glucose sensors on chip using the microfluidics. The sweat, you can take the sweat, okay, and this sweat we can process it and to measure the glucose level, to detect the glucose level. Then lab on chip, this is the lab on chip. It integrates the several laboratory function on a single chip. So all kind of laboratory functions in a very small type of environment. That is the lab on chip. Very small amount of sample size, very fast analysis and response time. This is the example of organ on chip. You can see that this organ on chip, simulates the activities, mechanics and physiological response of entire organ and organ system. So our entire organ can be mimicked. Suppose lungs can be mimicked, kidney can be mimicked, heart can be mimicked. Okay, so this can be mimicked with the help of the microfluidics technology. It is called the organ on chips. So this is one example of liver on chip that already there. Okay, it is on some published figure that I have presented here. The liver on chip is there. Then we can see the lungs on chip. So people has already invented the lungs on chip also. Heart on chip is also possible in a small micro volume, the small spaces. Okay, we can imitate our heart function. Then intestine on chip also, that is also possible. People has done this. multi-organ on chip also, the not a single organ, so many organs also can be in a single chip, can be integrated. So how this technology, so obviously this is so advanced technology that can support this type of system that we cannot imagine or we cannot think of. Now this is the kidney on chip. So what is this? So I will mainly actually now briefly share some of the research activities on this kidney on chip. We are not doing anything on the kidney on chip, but our actually intention actually is do some research towards the application of kidney on chip, so that it can little bit, if 1% can contribute to the future kidney on chip technology. So this is the kidney organ on chip that we have that seen that the this researchers started to look for remedies for the problems posed by dialysis, that we have seen what is the problem in the dialysis. So the only solution is to regenerate the kidney function on a chip. So the kidney transplantation also is not so popular. There is the problem in 2D animal models. Then the in vitro analysis of the drugs in animal testing also there is a problem. Dialysis is also there is a problem. So what is the way to overcome this? So the solution is to generate, if we can regenerate the kidney function on a chip, like using the organ on chip technology, then we can easily transplant this KOC or kidney on chip inside that. If somebody is suffering from kidney failure, then something can be done. So the chip that is to be designed should have less size, more reliability, less costly, able to provide required solutes and filtration, and must provide comfortless. So all kind of function that kidney used to do, that has to be integrated inside these kidney on chip devices. So this is possible by a technology that is organ on chip. So so what is that? So organ on chip, we have seen that there are several organs can be mimicked in a chip, like heart, blood vessel, lung, liver, kidney. Future will be body on chip also. People are working, and their whole human body can be also replicated. So kidney on chip. So I can you can see the what are the challenges in this research area, because there are so many challenges, because the dealing, first of all we have to deal with the blood. Blood is a very complex dynamics. The blood flow mechanism is still unknown. The blood, what are the constituents of blood, the ionized, deionized. Okay, the is a blood is not a very easy type of fluid flow mechanism. So it is a very complex thing. So we have to deal with the blood. Then we have to replicate the tubule walls. In the nephron, we have seen how the complex structures of nephron, the glomerulus, the proximal convoluted tubule, the some kind of wounded helical shape. So we have to replicate that. It is not easy job. Elasticity of kidney. Material selection is very difficult, because we cannot select this and that material. The material that has to be non-reaction with the body. It should not do any reaction with your body. Otherwise, then the people can die also. So the proper selection of the material that should be biocompatible, that should not be harmful to our cells and body, that has to be taken care of. Generating new material is tough and time consuming. May not perform perfect function. After developing the KOC also, we can expect it will purely mimic the kidney. It is not like that, because perfect function of kidney mimicking is really a challenge, because kidney does several functions. All the functions in perfect manner, it is a really challenge. Coagulation of blood, because in something we have seen that the blood coagulation can arise also, and it can lead to the death of the patient. So if fails, loss will be fatal, may become lethal. So these are the challenges that the researchers has to deal with this when they will do something on research level with this technology. So the MEMS and microfluidics, obviously we have seen how the MEMS and microfluidics will be there to actually to do this research on this field. So anyone working on it, obviously some organizations are working on microfluidics, that our IISc Bengaluru, there's a good team. They're doing good jobs in IIT Bombay, IIT Kharagpur also, IIT Delhi. then in the outside India, then in California, Institute of Universal California, then Harvard University, then some industries are also doing a good work on these microfluidics and organ on chip technology. So what we are presently actually doing, that is actually my motto, is to present a brief just study on that, what actually we have done actually. So we actually generally follow this flow chart actually. So first we are doing the kidney study, then some fluid mechanics and theories. So this flow chart may be the useful for the prospective researchers who want to work on this field. That's why I have put it in the slides. Then we are slowly moving to the designing the structures. Then some two functions actually we have taken of the kidney, one bioreactor and the ultrafiltration. Then we are trying to model and simulate in MEMS and microfluidics environment, and then the study and analysis of the results obtained. So this flowchart actually we are trying to maintain on that. So the kidney, basically kidney has a two actually the primary function. One is ultrafilter and bioreactor. The ultrafiltration means the mainly the glomerulus does the filtration part. So the size and shape dependent absorption technique is followed. And in bioreactor, we can see the proximal tubule and distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. This is there. So in proximal tubule also we have to, we have seen that there are different kind of stresses are there inside the cell interaction stress, fluid shear stress, FSS, and the size and shape dependent separation of the molecule. Suppose sodium, potassium, magnesium, all are in a blood. It is flowing. So how to separate these different components in a different chamber? So that depends on the size and shape also of these components. So the first work that we have initiated, actually we are very new on this. I generally work on the RF MEMS more or less, mainly, but recently we have shifted actually to this work. So first actually we tried to mimic the fluid shear stress actually for culturing the kidney cells. So here actually the fluids, we want to see what is the effect of fluid shear stress. Fluid shear stress, actually what is that? In the figure it is clear. When there will be no actually the under no flow condition, then we can see the endothelial cells inside the kidney tubules like that, the red and blue color, it will be remain stand still. But when there will be flow of lumen fluid, suppose blood is coming, then it will stuck these cells, okay, and this is called the shear stress. So the shear stress or the fluid level, when the fluid flows, when the cells experience, okay, the stress on the walls, when the fluid flows, it is called the fluid shear stress. So how the fluid shear stress actually can be regenerated and how can affect our kidney function, that actually we try to create it. So we have created one structure, okay, the entire thing actually is being published, and those who are interested, they can actually see our work, because due to that short time, I'm not able to explain, okay, in elaborate manner. So this is actually the structure that we are trying to mimic the fluid stress, and then we have done some different study, the flow velocity, pressure distribution, okay, in the what position the pressure is too high and where the pressure is too low, and then we have also got some results, okay, the different results, that comparison of fluid shear stress at body level and the cell site with respect to change in inflow and how it changes in the viscosity of fluid, if the viscosity of fluid is changing, how the fluid shear stress level is affected. Then also we have done some kind of temperature study and pressure distribution also. Then then also we have changed the structures, okay, we have now used the double wing structures. In the double wing and single wing structure, we have made some comparison, okay, and then we have some observation on that. Then the temperature distribution over the structure is also, it is simulated and seen. Then also we have tried to publish some results from our first work. So you can see that we have published this work on microsystem technologies in the year of 2019. Those you please refer, I refer to this, all the interested participants, you can go through our paper and can give some comments on that. So now in the second work, actually in the first work that we have seen, the only the mimicking of fluid shear stress is not sufficient, it is a very small part. So now actually we have to mimic the entire tubule environment, like proximal convoluted tubule, that we want to actually mimic. So what is that? It is that because some reabsorption function, mainly actually we want to develop some reabsorption function of the kidney. Reabsorption means, suppose in the blood, the waste filled blood, it will take kidney and then it will filter, and the pure blood, it will be reabsorbed, and the waste products that will be excreted in the form of urine. So the reabsorptions of the nutrients, some sodium, calcium, magnesium, protein components, again it will be reabsorbed by the blood vessels. So that reabsorption actually depends on three types: size dependent, shape dependent, and charge dependent. And also this a fluid shear stress and hydrodynamic pressure, both this type of technology actually has to be there to mimic this reabsorption function. So in the second work, we have actually the study of different tubule shapes for regeneration of proximal tubule function. The proximal convoluted tubule, it is called PCT, because we have seen that the proximal tubule, you can see in the figure how it is complex. So it is very difficult to exactly regenerate this shape. So what we have done, we have first tried to make a very simple structure of a proximal tubule, just a rectangular structures. And we have also mimicked these two blood tubule that is entirely surrounded by the proximal tubule, and these blue lines are the channels, the transferring channels, that the solutes can be transported to the blood tubule through these channels. So now we have tried to design some the structural changes of the proximal tubule, and then we have done some experiments on that. So the single channel processing, that we have seen the heavy flow, and then also we have mathematically generated some analytical functions, and we have compared our theoretical results and simulated results, and now the results are, so far now it is satisfactory. Then after that, we have changed our tubule shape from rectangular to the diagonal proximal tubule, and then we have seen if we make the diagonal shape, then the velocity or the fluid flow velocity actually will be much more. If the fluid flow velocity is more, that means the reabsorption possibility is also more. So in the diagonal channel also we have done some experiments, and then we have also changed the structures in step and serpentine structures. And after that, we have compared, we have made a comparison with all kind of actually shapes of the structure: straight, diagonal, step, and some serpentine. Among them, the diagonal shape actually is found is giving a very good results compared to the other one. So this work is also published in the year of 2020. Who are interested, you please see our work on that. Then in the work 3, we are trying to model the analytically, because not only the simulation actually can give you the perfect one, because if the simulation results are supported by some good mathematical model, then also it actually it indicates that okay, your work is going in a right direction. So we are simulating in a COMSOL environment, but also at the same time we are trying to develop some mathematical model of this actually the mimicking of the kidney functions. So we have tried some little bit of modeling, so using the fluid dynamics mechanism. So after modeling also, we have seen the results are coming, that is good. And also we have published our results, the mathematical models also in these papers in the year of 2020. So that means it gives us the confidence that okay, we are doing in the right direction. So so actually it again boost actually ask our team to do something more on that field. Then also in work 4, now we are trying to model and simulation of the hydrodynamic torque effect on the rear. Hydrodynamic actually pressure and hydrostatic pressure, you know, it is deals with the fluid flow. So if we involve the both the hydrostatic and hydrodynamic effect in the fluid mechanics, then also we actually want to see what is the effect on the reabsorption function. Then obviously we have seen because we have to recreate this environment. So what we have done, we have deliberately put some bars inside the main tubule so that it can generate some hydrodynamic torque effect. So in the simulation environment, we have done this, and then we have tried to mathematically model our design. So after the mathematically modeling also, then also we have done some analysis with our this work, and also it was published. We have published our work in some journals. Now in the last work, actually we are trying to work on this. Now the we have to also, we want to use of electrokinetics mechanism to mimic the charge dependence, because in the electrophoresis and dielectrophoresis we want to apply these two techniques into our reabsorption function, because in the blood flow also we have seen, we have studied in the literature that the electrophoresis and dielectrophoresis can play also good role in to support the reabsorption functions of the kidney. So that's why actually we have tried to implement these two techniques in our device structure, and then we have also tried to model something on electrophoresis and dielectrophoresis, and some results are also there that we have again able to achieve some results also. There are good number of results also we have seen, but then also we have tried to consider the surface tension effect. Actually, that is the surface tension effect is very crucial in the when the fluid flow in the micro level. So that's why we try to involve this Brownian movement and surface tension model effect in our model. So now also we have done a lot of work on this, but we are expecting good results from this paper, because we have submitted our work in the IEEE transactions on nanoscience, but it is under review till now. We do not know what is the result, but we are expecting that the results will be positive. So after, in the summary, if we see that if we compare all these techniques, then we can actually our actual proximal convoluted tubule on human kidney, the reabsorption efficiency is 60%. So our target is to achieve the 60% efficiency. So that's why we have seen in the combined design, where the size and charge dependent can be combined together, then we can make something 50 to 57% efficiency that can reach towards the actual PCT. So now this is my research collaborations that I want to acknowledge these persons who are helping us actually with this work. Obviously, we can see some doctors are there. Without the help of doctors, we cannot do anything on this field. Then this is my international research collaborations. I am involved with them in different projects and other works, not in kidney on chip or this field, in other RF MEMS or energy harvesting also we are doing something with this. These are my research scholars. Then some of them has already actually the PhD awarded, and some of them are also thesis will be submitted very soon. Some of them are working with me. So this guy, Mr. Justice Satish, he is actually working in mimicking these human organs actually. So some kind of different work actually we have thought of. Generally, actually we used to not work, but I have thought, okay, something to contribute or towards this field. So this is my National MEM Design Center in our NIT Silchar. So here actually we work on these fields: MEMS, switches, filters, reconfigurable antennas, energy harvesting also we are doing, MEMS drug delivery systems, and then MEMS kidney on chip devices. So some research areas, those who want to join in our team or NIT Silchar for PhD, maybe in masters, they are welcome. So they may be doing okay in any of the fields that we have, that I have here presented. And my whole contribution, my research publications is there in my NIT Silchar website is there. We can, interested participants can follow. Thank you for your interest. and I wish a big success. Just okay, so before finishing, just I will take 1 minute, because obviously this is a good forum, that I want to say that I am also convening and coordinating one auto FDP like that on 20 to 24 August. It is on the biomems and medical micro devices. So please join and register for my course and give it a wide publicity, because only 15 days are left, so that you can join our workshop also. So these are the prospective speakers that I have selected who will be delivering lectures on my workshops. So please join, register and attend the program virtually. Then we will have a lot of interaction during these workshops. So thank you. So I'm just taking a long time actually. So I expected. Okay, Dr. Raut. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your nice talk. So any questions from participants you directly ask? So anyone interested for any doubts or any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Participants are asking about the presentation slide. Can you provide the slide? They are asking in that way.
Yes, yes. Actually, okay, I will provide you, but not now, because there is some work
Yes, sir.
that's still not
Sure,
published.
sure.
That's
So
why.
you
So
can.
yes, yes, yes. So I will send you. Okay, I will send you the
Sir, you
updated
can mail
version
me
of our
so
slides.
that I
Yeah.
can.
Yes, sure, sure. I will
The
mail
one
you.
thing also, sir, already you have another meeting also in
Yes, sure.
11:30.
Yes, yes. I am already
And
late on that.
okay, yes,
Please.
sure.
And
Thank you
if
very
there is
much.
any doubt or any type of assistance or any information required, please ask the participants to send a mail to me, or to
Sure,
you
sure.
also. You can via send to me. I am always here, okay, to answer.
Sure. So
No,
thank you
no
very
problem.
much, Dr. Kaushik sir, for the nice presentation regarding the kidney or chip and regarding the particular MEMS, microfluids, biomedicals applications, medical technology, organ on chip, kidney on chip. All these things are correlated, and also we can say that the integration of that. That's really a PLSI and MEMS integration, I can say. So
Yes.
thank you very much for the nice and informative session. And sir,
Thank
I
you.
will connect you offline, sir.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thanks to all. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much. Okay. So I'm leaving. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
sure. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.